Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to our RN to BSN webinar. We're waiting for some people to get in. We're going to get started here in a few minutes. So just sit tight, and then at 7:30, we'll get started with the presentation. Thanks. Hey, everyone. Thanks for sitting tight. We're just going to give it a couple more minutes as it's just 7:30. See everyone signing in. So just sit patiently, and we will be starting momentarily. Thanks.
Hey, welcome to RN to BSN webinar. This is Dr. Milo. I am the RN to BSN clinical coordinator, and I've been with Cal State San Marcos for over 7 years now, and I'm excited that you're all here. And we're going to go over the program overview in a few minutes. Okay, so today's agenda, we'll talk about the RN to BSN program overview, the structure, schedule, admission criteria. Brooke Judkin is going to go over the admissions criteria, cost and financial aid, and then we're going to have any questions, comments that you may have. Well, feel free to let us know, okay? So the program overview. This is a 100% online course. The focus of this program is for the students to be able to provide nursing care to diverse individuals and communities, and to have the knowledge and skills for general nursing practice, and be well prepared for entry into graduate level nursing programs. Most of our graduates, they can do leadership roles in healthcare organizations and community agencies after graduation. So this is a fully online program. The starting is every fall, spring, and summer. There's going to be 2 8-week sessions in the fall and spring, and 1 10-week session in summer. There's going to be a clinical requirements for the program. The leadership, there's 90 hours requirement, and community health is 90 hours. Students must look for their clinical placements for this classes, and we're going to go over this when they're going to be offered, but we highly recommend that students start looking for leadership and community health placements, and we will work with you in terms of placement, but we encourage students to start ahead on this process. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the schedule. So the first class is going to start on fall of 2018. If you're planning to do that, the first class is going to be the role transition for the RN, and also the 351, which is the seminar for the RN. And the next class is going to be in spring, and the physical assessment course with 370. So that's going to be 3 classes that you're going to do in spring, and 2 courses in spring too. This is just an example of the class schedule, and this schedule is for 60 for 2 years, so 16 months. And the next one, summer class, you're going to do the pathophysiology and pharmacology, and then we're going to have you take the community health nursing, public health, nursing management in fall 1, and the last course that you're going to take is nursing leadership and family nursing. So I'm going to have you, Brooke's going to talk about the admissions criteria.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Brooke Judkins, and I'm the Assistant Dean of Student Services. And so I'm going to really be walking you through the admissions criteria, as well as discussing the financial aid and financial aspect of pursuing this program at Cal State San Marcos. If you guys do have questions along the way, please feel free to ask those questions in the questions area. We will be addressing those at the conclusion of the presentation today. So first things first, so one of the primary admissions requirements for the program is having your ADN degree, as well as your RN license. The other thing that we're looking for is that you have at least a 2.00 in your transferable coursework that you've taken at your previous institutions. And so what we're requiring students to do with their application is to submit all official transcripts at the time of application. So that means regardless if you potentially withdrew from classes at a particular institution, you failed some classes at another institution, we need all post-secondary transcripts when you apply to the program to be considered. So in addition to having the 2.00 GPA requirement for your transferable units in general, the last 60 units must also have at least a 2.00 to be considered for admission. Now, this next section that we'll be talking about are the prerequisites that are required for the program. We refer to those as the pre-nursing core courses. And so we often get a lot of questions about these 8 courses. And so I'm going to try to walk you through these one by one. So first thing is you must earn at least a C letter grade or above or better in each of these courses. So we have oral communication, written communication, critical thinking, and our mathematics requirement. And so Most of the programs that you probably participated to get your ADN degree, you probably have satisfied the oral communication, the written communication, as well as critical thinking. And some of you may have also satisfied the mathematics requirement in terms of completing a college algebra. But in addition to a general, math or college algebra course, we're also having students complete a statistics course. And so with that, we're looking for a particular statistics course. And in particular, we're looking for students to have satisfied requirements in terms of what we call topics covering inferential statistics. So regression, correlation, and things like that, because we really want you to be prepared for your research and methods course in the program. So we call these first 4 classes our golden 4. So if you hear about that, when you're talking with us, communicating with us in the future, when we talk about golden 4, we're talking about oral communication, written communication, critical thinking, as well as the math requirement. So in addition to those 4 classes, we're also looking for students to have a microbiology class with a lab, a human anatomy and physiology course with a lab. And so students compare this up a number of different ways. So you could take an anatomy course with the lab and then take a separate physiology course with the lab. Or some students, what we've seen happen is they'll take anatomy and physiology 1 and then anatomy and physiology 2 with the lab for both of those classes to satisfy the requirement. And then lastly, we have the chemistry requirement, which is we require students to have at least a general chemistry or organic chemistry class with or without a lab. And so I know that can be a little confusing, but really what we're looking at is, what did your previous institution require? Did your previous institution require you to have a lab to successfully complete kind of the sequence for that particular class or not? If your previous institution did not require you to complete a lab, then we won't require you to have a lab either. But if your previous institution did require you to have a lab for that chemistry requirement, then we would require you to have a lab associated with that. So that just to give you a highlight, the statistics class that we're requiring students to have, while we're saying it's an admissions requirement, we will be offering it as part of the program. And so we will be able to work with you should you need to take a stats here at Cal State San Marcos. So please do submit your application, even if you're deficient in statistics. Like I said, we'll be able to work with you in those situations. And so like I mentioned, not only do you need to meet these criteria that are listed on this page in terms of the GPA requirement, the course requirements, and things like that, we also will need your completed application submitted through what we call CSU Apply. It's a pretty rigorous application, but once you've done that and submit your official transcripts, what will happen is we'll send you evaluation letting you know where you stand in terms of having these, for example, these 8 classes for the prerequisites satisfied or not, as well as any other degree requirements that you would need to complete our program at Cal State San Marcos. So moving right along from the admissions criteria, our costs. We understand that costs are incredibly important as you're deciding whether or not to attend Cal State San Marcos. And so we've hoped that we've made the program incredibly affordable. And so our rates for the program are, it's $260 per unit. And so each term you might be taking a variable set of units. So for example, if you were to start in our fall semester, in our October start, you'll be taking potentially 6 units. And so the estimated cost or for tuition is about $1,500 or $1,600. So not only would you have to pay the tuition, there are additional fees associated with this program. The good thing about being in an online program, the fees are considerably lower than any of our other programs across campus and across the board. And so the fees that you'd have to pay per term would be $55. And so for your fall total costs and fees, you're averaging about $1,600, $1,615 for tuition and fees. Now, keep in mind that does not include books or any other additional costs that are associated with taking classes during the fall term and any other term thereafter. So please keep that in mind as you're budgeting to participate in this particular program. Additional fees might also include, there's an application fee that's associated with this program, as well as require students to pay an enrollment deposit. And so the enrollment deposit is $150, but please know that $150 goes towards your first semester fees. So while I talked about that your tuition and fees for the first term, potentially if you start in fall, would be about $1,600. Once you pay the $150, you'd only have to pay about, $1,300 or so in remaining tuition and fees. And so for a total, if we're looking at the entire program over the 16 months, we're looking at about a little over $10,000. Again, we hope that's incredibly affordable for students. We recognize that some of you guys are working or may not be working, and so we try to price the program at a reasonable rate. And keep in mind, again, that this is just tuition and fees. There will be additional additional costs throughout the program, like books and things like that. So please do keep that in mind. So again, we understand that financial year education is incredibly important. This program is financial aid eligible. So many of our students do participate and take financial aid, as well as many of them look for scholarships and grants to help finance and offset their educational costs. Many of the students that we work with in our program today currently also have tuition reimbursement through their hospitals or what have you. So please do, as you're looking at our program, there are a number of different ways to fund this particular program. So if you have questions about opportunities about funding your program, financial aid is a great resource here on this campus, but also connecting with your employer for additional ways to help finance and support you throughout the program. So we've listed here a couple of different websites and phone numbers for you to review. So our financial aid website is www.csusm.edu /financial/finaid, excuse me. And they can be reached at 760-750-4850. And then we definitely encourage you to visit our website for scholarship opportunities. Many students don't apply for scholarships because they think that they won't get the scholarship, but there's no certain way to not get a scholarship than to not apply for one. So we definitely encourage students to seek out scholarship opportunities because it's an easy way to help finance your education. Some of them could just be you writing an essay. Some of them might just be, why are you interested in being a nurse? There are a number of different ways that you can, again, finance your education, and scholarships are another way to do that. Some of you may be previous students of the Cal State system, and you might have at your undergraduate level or what have you, may have participated or earned CalVet, or you received CalVet funding. Unfortunately, because this program is administered through our extended learning operations of the university, the CalVet college tuition fee waiver is not, this is not an eligible program. So keep that in mind if you have previous experience about getting a CalVet college tuition fee waiver. Unfortunately, this program is not eligible to receive that additional funding. So that's pretty much it for the actual information session. We'll take the time now to answer any questions that you may have. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to read through any of the questions that came through as we were talking today. So just give me a couple of minutes here as I kind of sort through some things, and I'll get back to the questions in just a moment. Okay, so the first question that we had is, how much does the program typically cost? Again, the program is about $10,210 if we're just looking at tuition and fees, but that again doesn't necessarily include additional fees in terms of books and things like that. So the next question is, would you accept applicants with a scheduled NCLEX exam, or would applicants need to have their RN license already? We encourage students to already have their RN license. The good thing about this program is that we admit 2 times a year. Mm-hmm. 3 times a year, forgive me. And so if you're taking, for example, the NCLEX exam during the fall term, you might not be admissible for fall, but we certainly could review you for the spring or summer terms. So keep that in mind. We do encourage students to already have their RN license to apply to the program. The next question that I see is, do those classes have to be taken recently, or can they have been taken within the last 7 years? And I think that you're talking about the pre-nursing core courses. Fortunately, there is no age limit in terms of when you took those classes. So if you took those classes last year, 7 years ago, 15 years ago, or what have you, we would still use that in terms of satisfying the requirements. So there's no time frame in which you have to, there's no recency time frame that the classes have to be taken. Good question. So the next question is about foreign language. Do you need 3 semesters of foreign language? So as you may or may not know, Cal State San Marcos required students to take a requirement called language other than English requirement. And what that usually translated into was having about 3 courses in a foreign language, right? Because we wanted to make sure that you're proficient potentially in a foreign language. With the addition of this new program, we are evaluating whether or not students will have to take that foreign language requirement. But as a university, we're stepping away from having students to take those 3 courses. If anything, you'll have to take at least 1 foreign language requirement to graduate from the program. The next question that I have is, would we receive a public health certificate? And I'm going to let Roselle.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and answer that question. Yes, you will. So when you're done with the program, what we have students do is send their transcript to the BRN, and then the BRN will issue a public health certification. You don't need to take any exam because by that time you already met the requirements for public health certification.
Okay, next question. It's a long one, so give me 1 second to summarize it. So the next question is, it's a 2-part question. The first part of the question is, would it be realistic to complete stats at Cal State San Marcos? So let me address that first. I think it would be realistic to take stats at Cal State San Marcos. I will mention that it might be a little bit more cost affordable if you were to take it at a local community college, but certainly if you wanted to start the program sooner rather than later, taking it with Cal State San Marcos is probably the right thing to do. The next question has to do with our language other than English requirement, and in particular the courses that are required. So the question is, should I take, or should we take, Spanish 101, 102, or 201 at another institution? I would say yes, because those courses will not be offered in our program in the future, and there will not be an online option for students to take. So if you can find that 101, 102, and 201 elsewhere, we encourage you to take that. But again, we are looking at, as an institution, getting away from having students take those 3 classes to satisfy the requirement. So if you're going to start anywhere, I would probably start taking Spanish 101 elsewhere, and then connecting with us to make sure whether or not you need to take actually 101 and or 201 to satisfy the degree requirements at Cal State San Marcos. Okay, so the next question is, am I correct in my understanding that students must find their own clinical placements?
Yeah, this is Dr. Milo again. Yes, for leadership and public health, they require clinical hours. I believe 90 hours for leadership. I can't remember for the public health. I think it's also 90 hours. The reason is most of our students are not local, so they're from another state. We don't have a set contract with those hospitals or organizations, so we do encourage, or we have the students look for their own clinical placements. And when you get to that point, we work with you. So we help you set up that contract with that hospital or with that organization. But some places, they may not require a contract for you to complete the hours, but you need to let us know what's going on. Okay, so when you get to that point, we will be in touch, or even you could start the process earlier if you would like.
Okay, so the next question is in relation to upper division general education courses. So in particular, the question is, I think the question is, if you've taken upper division general education courses elsewhere, would we transfer those in essentially? If you've taken upper division general education coursework elsewhere, we will transfer it in if it came from another Cal State school. If the course did not come from another Cal State school, it is unlikely that we would transfer that in and meet our general education requirement at the upper division level. So keep that in mind. Again, if you take it at another CSU and it was detailed as an upper division GE course or courses, we will take that in transfer. The next question is, would an intermediate algebra course meet mathematics, quantitative reasoning requirements? It depends. It depends on the institution. So I can't give you a definitive yes or no answer. We would have to look at course descriptions and things like that. So what I would recommend you do is when you apply to the program and you submit your transcripts, we will, like I mentioned earlier, we'll complete an evaluation for you. And at that point, we'll let you know whether or not intermediate algebra satisfies the requirements. I apologize, I can't give you a concrete answer there, but it really is institution specific. What is the link to apply for the program? So what we can do is when we send out this PowerPoint presentation or this webinar, what we'll do is we'll include the link to the application so that you can start your application right away. One thing to note when you guys are applying to the program, when you get into apply to CSU Apply, again, you'll need to list every previous institution that you attended, regardless of how well you did at that school. You need to list every single institution that you attended. We often find students, what delays them in terms of getting into our program or being considered for our program is because they fail to mention or list all the previous institutions. But we have a system in place to help check that. And so again, we encourage you to, when you're filling out your application, providing us with each institution that you previously attended to ensure that your application is reviewed in a timely manner.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, so the next question is, can I describe the stats class needed in more detail? So there's really kind of two areas, if you will, or areas of focus for stats. One is descriptive statistics and the other is inferential statistics. So descriptive statistics is basically being able to do averages and means and things like that. So very basic, rudimentary, calculations, if you will. Inferential stats is really you're comparing populations, for example, to one another. You're doing additional testing like regression testing. You're using skills like ANOVA, t-tests. So it's really a step above the traditional kind of descriptive statistics. And we're really looking to make sure that you have a firm understanding of how to compare information from one list to another list or one group to another group. Because again, this will be really helpful for you as you're entering into that research and methods course.
Mm-hmm. And let me just add to that, the research and the methods course, they do, we are expected the students to know the descriptive and inferential statistics, although we go over it in class, but we expect the students to have background on in that information. So that's why the statistics is needed prior to starting those classes.
Right. And so what we often will do, we mentioned earlier that stats will be offered in the program. And so to get into, for example, the research and methods class, you have to tell us, you have to show that you've satisfied the stats requirement. So you may not be able to take that research and methods class until you've satisfied the stats requirement. So just again, keep that in mind as you're considering this program. Okay, so give me 1 second. I have a longer question, so I just want to summarize it really quickly. So the question is, other than submitting an application once graduated with a BSN following the 3-step process, are there any other requirements to obtain the public health certification? For example, a clinical component. Some other universities require a certain amount of clinical hours.
When you submit your application to the BRN or Board of Registered Nursing, they will ask you if you met the requirement for child abuse, if you have a class or you met the requirement for that. And you need to just enter that on your application. And the program has a clinical component, which is 90 hours that met the requirement for PHN certificate.
Yeah, so we often students will not necessarily recall the actual class that was associated with meeting that particular requirement that Dr. Milo mentioned. And so what they'll do is they'll sometimes connect with us and contact us and say, well, what was that class again? Was it Nurse 447 or whatever it is? And so feel free, as you're filling out, your application for that certification, if you can't recall that particular class, to connect with us, and we can provide you with the information that you need to go ahead and submit that successfully. Okay. So the next question is, when will the program start? Can I start at fall 2019? So we are starting, the next cohort will begin October 2018. And then we will be admitting students for spring 2019, summer 2019, as well as fall 2019. The application for fall 2019 will not open until October 1st, or around October 1st. So if you're looking to apply to fall 2019, keep that in mind. The applications for the spring 2019, as well as summer 2019, those are currently open, as well as the application for fall 2018. So there are 3 applications currently open right now: fall 2018, spring 2019, and summer 2019. And fall 2019 will be open in the coming months, October specifically. So the question is, they graduated with their ADN in 2004. Are the prerequisites still valid? I still need to take stats. Provided you've satisfied all 8 courses as part of the pre-nursing core requirements, they would still be valid. And if you still need to take statistics, what you can do is you can apply to the program. Stats will be offered in the program, so it won't be a deterrent in terms of you getting into the program. So please do apply. We will do an evaluation just in case you need other classes. I understand that you've earned your associate's degree, but sometimes we find that sometimes the associate's degree may be missing one of the other requirements for whatever reason. So continue to apply to the program. We'll do an evaluation and let you know where you stand. So the next question is, what can be done about clinicals if one happened to not be employed?
That's a very good question. In that case, we could, I believe we worked with some students in the past. If there's an issue that you couldn't get clinical placement, be in touch with us as soon as possible. And when you get to that class, we definitely could work with you. If there's an organization or hospital close to where you live, we might have a contract with them. We might have an affiliation with them, and you might be able to do your clinical hours there.
Do prerequisites expire? No, there is no time frame in which you have to have the prerequisites completed. We will accept the prerequisite coursework, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, or what have you. So provided you've successfully completed the course and earned at least a C or above, and completed the other requirements, like if the class needed a lab, that kind of thing, we would consider that for admissions purposes. So the next question is, do you have to be working as an RN? How about any type of clinical requirements? So I'll answer the first part of the question. Do you have to be currently working as an RN? No, but we just want to make sure that you have an active and valid RN license to be admissible to the program. In terms of the clinical requirements,
With the clinical requirements, if you're asking if you need to have a clinical hours to be admitted to the program, it's not a requirement to be admitted in the program. But once you're admitted in the program, there are clinical hours required. So that's the leadership and the public health hours.
So the next question is, how many students are accepted every term? So we are relaunching this program, and so we do have a target number. You know, but the good thing about this is that we're an online program, and so we have the opportunity to admit more students term over term. So there's a pretty good chance if you're applying to the program and you're meeting the admissions requirements that you will get in. So the next question is, when is the next start date, and is there still time to apply? The next start date is October 2018. Yes, there is still time to apply. The application deadline is on our website, and we potentially will provide that in the email communication when we send out the webinar. So the next question is, do you have affiliated facilities to do the community health clinicals?
It depends where you live. We currently have a community health requirement in our traditional program. So if you live in the area that we have affiliations, it's a possibility that we already have a contract with that community health clinic organization.
Where on the website can I find more information? Again, we'll send out a link to you to provide you guys with very important information. So the application website and just a general link to our program website. So you'll have an opportunity to review the website at your leisure. So the next question is focused on in the classroom. So the question is, what do assignments consist of? I've heard that some programs are all papers and others are all exams.
It depends on the class. For example, for the first class that you're going to take, 350 and 351, my understanding is that discussion assignments, there's also papers in that class. I can't tell you how many papers in that class. For the physical assessment, there is no paper in that class, but there are discussion assignments, there are quizzes. There's also some online virtual lab that you need to do. But most of our classes, there's going to be discussion assignments and one paper. I believe in pathophysiology, there's also one paper in that class. So it depends on the class.
Yeah. So it sounds like there's a pretty healthy mix of exams and discussions and the like, and papers. Okay, so the next question is, I haven't taken English 1B, political science, or stats. Can I start the program without having those classes? I'm not familiar with what English 1B is. I would imagine it might be the written communication or oral communication, political science. So if you haven't taken, for example, if I'm assuming correctly that English 1B is oral communication or written communication, you wouldn't be able to start the program. You can certainly apply to the program. And in terms of having political science taken, that political science is not an admissions requirement. And in some respects, the stats class is not an admissions requirement either. So I think probably the one initial barrier would be if you haven't taken the oral communication or written communication. But again, we're admitting students 3 times a year. So if you still have time, you could take the English class, in the fall term or maybe in the spring term, and then we can consider you for an upcoming start date. Okay, so the next question is, I have a diploma in nursing, not an actual ADN. I do have my RN license, I've been working for many years. Am I eligible to apply to the program? So certainly we've had students in the past who've earned their diploma who are in a similar situation. So we typically are able to work with you, work with the students who have a diploma. So again, please do apply. While we encourage students to have the ADN degree, we recognize there are many students out there, or many prospective students out there, who have earned the diploma as well, and they have an RN license. So yes, you would be eligible for the program, and when you'd be able to start, you could start as soon as October. Okay, so the next question is, when life happens, in particular, the individual's asking, if I get overwhelmed with a program, is there a way that I can take a break and or rejoin the next cohort? Certainly, this program is flexible. We recognize that life gets in the way. There are work commitments or personal commitments that you'll need to take care of. What we encourage students to do is to be forthcoming with their advisor when they're, coming up on these life situations. And the advisor can help you identify potential solutions. So it might be, maybe you need to take a leave of absence for a semester, or perhaps it's maybe dropping a class and, adding that class later on. So we recognize that the individuals applying to this program or participating in this program are working professionals and or, again, have life situations going on. And so we want to be accommodating to that student population. So again, if you're running into certain things or if life happens, please do connect with the advisor so that we can brainstorm some ideas to get you through the program. Okay, so the next question is, I just recently moved to California, currently waiting to take the NCLEX. All of my classes were in New York. Would you recommend meeting with someone personally with the college to see if the courses you mentioned? I don't think there's a need for you to meet personally. What I would recommend is apply to the program, provide us with your transcripts. The advisor will do an evaluation and review all of your transcripts from New York and wherever else, and then let you know where you stand. And I think at that point, once you've received an evaluation from us, if you have additional questions or have you, at that point, there might be an opportunity to connect with the advisor in person or over the phone, or have you to go over very specific questions that you may have. So there's a question on here about, in particular, I read on the forum online that the RN to BSN program is ending in San Marcos. Is that true? So that is true. We were planning to end the program this year, but we reevaluated the program, and that is why we're deciding to relaunch the program in October. When is the application period and when is the next semester to enroll? So the application for fall 2018 is currently open, and I cannot recall the application deadline right off the top of my head, but hopefully I'll be able to get that to you in just a minute or so. The next semester that you could enroll would be the fall 2018 term, and the deadline currently will be most likely around the end of September. If you were to go out to our CSU Apply application right now, you might see an application deadline date of August 15th. That date, please disregard that date right now. We will be updating that application deadline date most likely to the end of September, early October, because we recognize a number of you guys are just hearing about the program, that we're relaunching the program, so we want to be cognizant of that and give you the opportunity to apply to the program and then start in fall. Okay, so the next question is, I'm still in the ADN program and will be graduating December 2018. When should I start applying to CSUSM? So if you plan to graduate in December, what I recommend is, so this is where it kind of can get a little interesting, because depending how quickly your previous institution gets your grades, makes those official, and how quickly they can give us your transcripts, you could be potentially considered for the spring term. If for whatever reason we don't get all your transcripts to be considered for spring, certainly when we did get your transcripts in, we would consider you for the summer term. So you can apply now if you'd like. There wouldn't be a penalty, if you will, if you applied for spring and you weren't admissible. We would consider you for the summer term. You would not have to pay another application fee or anything like that. So apply now. So the next question is, what if you're bilingual? Would you still have to take the course in order to graduate? So as an institution, we are working through that. We recognize that many of our students are bilingual. And so what we've done in the past, I'll give you what we've done historically. Students who are bilingual either can, can take a proficiency exam, or they can place out of the taking the requirements. So most likely we would do the same thing here. Again, as an institution, we are working through how we're going to work with students and this particular requirement, language other than English requirement. So bear with us as we're meeting and working with faculty to make this work. I definitely would recommend, if you're applying now to the program, let us know that you speak another language, so that we can provide you with the most up-to-date and current information about what would be required for you, if anything, to graduate from the program. Can stats count as one of the upper division GE classes? It's not likely that it would count. I think I would need additional context about your specific question, and we'd have to probably look at the course description. So typically the stats requirement would satisfy a lower division requirement rather than an upper division requirement, but certainly exceptions can be made and reviewed and approved by faculty and things like that. So it really kind of depends. So a similar question to the one that we just had about if you're bilingual, would they still need to take the foreign language course? We recognize that many of the students, again, are speaking another language. So for the right now, I don't believe you would necessarily have to take another foreign language course. We might have to satisfy a different requirement. But again, notify us, let us know that you do speak another language, and then we can work with you once you're admitted to the program or prior to getting into the program. Our admissions counselors are able to help students with the application process. So we do have a separate team altogether. We call it our inquiry or our recruitment team, and they are certainly available to help and walk students through the application process. They would be your go-to in answering basic questions about where do I apply, how do I apply, what do I need to submit, and things like that. The advisors / admissions counselors are really going to be there to support you once you've applied to the program and started to submit your documents. But again, we do have a pretty substantial support network here. So if you have questions throughout the application process, do call us, do email us, and we'll get you over to the right individuals to help you. Okay, I'm going to answer probably one or two more questions, and then any other additional questions that are here, if we haven't addressed them, what we'll do is when we send out the PowerPoint or the webinar information, we'll address those at that time. So the next question is, if you're a student at a CSU system before and completed the necessary classes for foreign language, would this typically work for the requirement at Cal State San Marcos? Typically it would. Again, I don't want to guarantee anything today. We would need to look at the courses, make sure that it actually did satisfy the requirement and that kind of thing. So typically, if you took and satisfy the requirement elsewhere at another CSU, it would satisfy the requirement here. Okay, so the last question today would be, would you recommend taking an additional upper division GE during the spring semester or summer semester? So that you guys know, we do have built into our program upper division coursework. So I think as part of the schedule, we have the upper division coursework
in summer.
Okay, so I think that's going to do it for us today. Again, if there are additional questions, or if there are any other questions we don't answer, we'll reach out to you personally with an answer. So if you have any additional questions, feel free to reach out to us or add them here, and we will be in touch soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a great
you.
night. Please feel free to email us at el.inquiry@csusm.edu. We'll throw that in the answer section below. or check us out at csusm.edu/EL. And then on the left-hand side, you can find the RN to BSN tab, where it has all the information. Also, stay tuned to see an email tomorrow with all the information we had here and information to apply. Thanks so much and have a great evening.